This podcast contains explicit language.
Bafangu!
Houston, flight is go.
Mila, let's go. SPM. Safety contact.
From Assignment X, thesoniashow.com, and Amalgamated Storytelling, this is the Dorking Out Show, the podcast for people who love stories from movies, TV, books, podcasts, and everywhere else.
Welcome to episode 110 of Dorking Out. This is we're catching up on our homework random Dorking Out edition. With me today is my co-host, professional writer, and author of The Sonia Show. You know what? We've only been doing this for 110 episodes.
Yes.
But I feel bad about this because it's kind of redundant. It seems kind of redundant. Professional writer and author.
Well, I would say I get paid to write, therefore I'm a professional writer.
Right.
And I also happen to write a blog that I do not get paid for.
And so you're an author for the blog and a writer for the not blog? Is that what it is?
I don't know.
Okay.
But it only took us 110 episodes to figure it out.
That's right.
We'll have something different next week.
Sonia, well, we might not. We might just stick it. We might just stay with it. You know, there's sometimes you walk by a picture that's hanging on the wall in your house for years on end, and then someday you turn and go, what's with this picture? So anyway, that's kind of what's going on here.
Who hung up this picture of a sad clown?
Now back to me ignoring the picture. The Sonia Show, Sonia Mansfield.
Hello.
Hey there, how's it going?
With me today is my co-host, Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and nerd author. Those are separate things.
Well, those are separate things. One of which is getting incredibly aspirational. Like now, what I should do is keep the Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and just start putting random crap in after that. No. I'm not. I'm going through a version. I know I've said this at several times throughout the last 2 years of doing this podcast, but I'm actually going to start kicking chapters out the door here in a little bit. But anyway.
That's exciting.
So yes, we are here today to we're just going to do a whole bunch of random stuff. Yes, I have to apologize. My schedule has been kind of crazy lately because we went from one episode a week, and then in December we said we're going to do same amount of content but break it up, and that turned into a huge amount of episodes.
It was way more work than we wanted to do.
Right. And then now I'm trying to finish the book, I'm trying to do all this stuff, and I'm just starting up a new show, which you may or may not know.
Are you going to have me on the new show sometime?
Well, maybe. Because here's the thing.
Sorry, I mentioned it.
I'm not even on the show. And we're actually we're starting to get, like, we had...
I don't think I should be on the show.
We had, that's the thing. I don't think I should be on the show. It's a political show with actual political candidates actually running for real offices. And
I don't have anything smart to say.
We're actually getting a lot of traction on that. So yes, you are of course welcome on the show, but I think it might be a while before we have non-candidates on.
By the way, that's the title of my autobiography, is the I Don't Have Anything Smart to Say.
Oh God,
by Sonia Mansfield.
Jesus. What is with this false modesty? I know you have one of the biggest egos around, but you pretend on the show.
That's ridiculous. That is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, but I don't like to hear you talk about yourself like that.
Oh, thank you. You're such a good friend sometimes.
That's for me to do.
Yeah, that's right. You don't get to shit talk you, Sonia. That's my job.
That's right. What am I even here for if that's what's going? No, you're fine.
Well, I think our listeners understand that sometimes work and life, right. You have to get shit done, and that's why the episode is a little late this week. But
and
we'll
also,
make it up. We'll
also
make it up to you by being on time next week.
Maybe we'll see. In the immortal words of Barack Obama, you're likable enough. Is that the meanest thing he's ever said, now that I think about it?
Who did he say that to?
He said that to Hillary.
Oh.
In one of their things. It's like, oh, you guys don't seem to like each other, blah, blah, blah. And she said this very nice long thing about how much she liked him. And then I think his response was, you're likable enough. It was the coldest put down while ostensibly being kind that I think I've ever seen.
I don't even remember that.
Excuse me.
I'll have to take your word for it.
Yeah. No. So
we have each like kind of a list of random things that we're dorking out about right now.
Right.
That we're just going to kind of take turns and talk about.
Yes. Mine actually kind of have a theme, and I thought one of mine was going to be on your list or our list. But you know what? Why don't you get rolling?
Oh, I get to go first?
Yeah.
Okay. My list here isn't in any kind of order, just so you know. Do you want to talk about the new Han Solo trailer?
Sure. It looks
did you think it looked good?
Looks fine. I'm interested. Could be good.
I saw a lot of people were like, "Oh, it's just a heist movie," and I'm like, "What did you think it was going to be?"
That's what they've been telling you for the last 2 years. Oh, it's just this thing that we've been told it's going to be.
By the way, after watching the preview, I really wish it was a Lando movie.
I hear you. No, I hear you. I like that they're trying to do something different. You know, I am not asking.
I mean, I really think like we didn't need a Han Solo movie. I truly believe that.
Right.
Like I would have preferred. We've talked about this before. I would prefer a different Star Wars story that maybe is not connected to any of our characters that we know.
Right.
And a whole new original story.
Hold on, though.
But I like Donald Glover as Lando so much that I really wish this was a Lando movie.
Well, you know what? Here's the thing. Maybe it's that I have a soft spot for Ron Howard, and I'm a little disappointed in his last couple of years of filmmaking, and I think people have started to kind of kick him around a little bit. Maybe I'm just misperceiving that. But the thing, one thing I am liking about this is it's not this is the story of Han Solo. It's a heist movie, and Han is one of the characters. Or it seems as though it's going that way. And most of the characters in the movie are people we don't know.
That's true.
So it is actually, it's seeming to do some of the things that we've advocated for good prequels, which is, have people that we know in certain spots, but have the main action and the main drama be with people we don't know, because then we can have some thrills and chills and whatever. This is not something I needed desperately. This is not something I was looking for. It looks pretty slick. It looks pretty good. I'm hoping against hope that when this movie comes out and it's enjoyable in a Rogue One type of way, that we can finally stop with the behind-the-scenes freakouts.
Right.
Of, any kinds of, a lot of movies that are coming down the pike. But especially with the, oh my God, Star Wars is in crisis. We have to fire Kathleen Kennedy. We have to right the ship. We have to, what is it about?
Everything's ruined.
Everything's ruined, even though every movie that's come out has been met with ecstatic praise, despite what the haters of The Last Jedi had to say.
Right.
So,
I agree.
So, yeah. So I'm fine. I'm interested. It could suck. It might suck. I don't know. We'll see.
I guess we will.
So,
I will say I'm not going through and analyzing every little thing in the preview, which apparently some people are doing. I watched the trailer and I was like, yeah, that might be fun.
Yeah, that's all.
I don't feel the need to figure out if that's Chewbacca or not Chewbacca or who the other Wookiee is. And I was like, I'll just see the movie and they'll tell me.
That's right. I wonder how many Life Day references we're going to get. I have a suspicion that I'm serious. I have a suspicion that is Chewbacca's wife.
Oh.
And that
This is all a tie-in to the holiday special.
That there's going to be more than a few sly references to the holiday special, which I will be very happy with.
I hope that they release the holiday special then, so that we can.
Never going to happen.
Get the jokes.
Never going to. Oh yes, yeah, because it's impossible to see the Star Wars holiday special.
What's on your list?
Well, you know what? One of the things that's on my list, and I don't know why it's on my list, because a couple weeks ago we had a trusted listener who shall remain nameless, who admonished us or encouraged us to watch The Simpsons because they had the funniest episode in years on.
Oh yeah,
and check it out. So I've been.
What episode was it, by the way?
I absolutely cannot remember. But
okay.
I remember
it wasn't the Game of Thrones one, was it?
I don't think so.
Okay.
It was actually an episode that I saw and I think, wow, that was not bad. You know, that was not the level of suck I have come to regret, though still continually watch from The Simpsons. So, you know, in November, comedian Hari Kondabolu, Kondabolu. Wow, did I say that right on the first? I think I thought
sounded pretty good.
Kondabolu. Holy cow! Anyway, sorry. Put a documentary online, The Problem with Apu, which, you know, he's a Indian comedian, and he examined the problem that, you know, Apu is a pretty stereotypical character. You know, a convenience store owner in Springfield, who talks with a very stereotypical early 90s version of what comedians used to think of as a Indian accent. And it was an examination of the impact of this character, how much he liked The Simpsons, but how much irritation and stress this character had caused him. And he talked to a lot of different Indian Americans in various walks of life, and they had all been called Apu or had people in their lives reference Apu at them. But it was not this. And I'll admit, I've only seen snippets of it. It was not this flamethrower lighting the Simpsons on fire. It was not this huge attack. Mainly, what it was, and I think they might have even said this in the documentary, but they've definitely said it in the kind of commentary around the documentary, which is, it's not so much that Apu's a bad character, because a lot of the characters in The Simpsons are kind of broad stereotypes of, you know, the corporate bootlicker, the drunk Scotsman. I don't know how many jokes on Italians and Irish.
Yeah, I mean, well, look at Fat Tony.
Right, exactly.
Right.
The problem is that, you know, there was Apu on TV, and that was about it. You know, everybody else, there's other Scotsmen, there's a lot of other, you know, depictions of corporate life. There's a lot of
other shows that feature mobsters played by Italians.
Right, exactly. And so The Simpsons kind of teased that they were going to be doing a reference or response to this in this last week's episode. And at first I thought I saw it. I thought, wow, this is very slight and this is very whatever. And then it was almost as though in this show you could feel the writers slam the brakes on the story, and Marge and Lisa literally looked at the camera and kind of gave a little lecture.
I saw the clip. I didn't watch the full episode.
On how things, and it kind of, I mean, it was very clunky and hokey and whatever. And it's one of those situations, and we're going to talk about this a little bit in our discussion of Molly Ringwald and the Breakfast Club, and kind of tying into our discussion of 16 Candles, where I wish that we could find a place in our cultural discussion where things that have not aged well can be discussed without this kind of look at you troglodyte Neanderthals who are just so old and dumb and racist and sexist. Look at this awful culture that you've produced. We've got to throw it away. And I'm not saying that you're saying that. But then But then from the other perspective, I think we need to have a place for criticism of culture that doesn't necessarily try to erase it. And what I think is strange is Kanabulu's discussion of this topic, I thought was very fair, nuanced, meaningful, referenced. It really meant something. And the Simpsons' response to it was tone deaf, ridiculous, not funny, but also not touching, but also kind of snide, and also this weird lecture-y kind of like, well, things that start out as this eventually turn into that, and there's kind of nothing we can do about it. So there you go.
Which is such a cop-out.
Which is a cop-out. Now, here's the thing. And it's funny because now that we're talking about this...
They could deal with... The Simpsons has dealt with other things, other situations, very thoughtfully, very clever, like smart ways before. Whether it's, they've had voice actors who've passed away.
Right.
And they've had to deal with that on the show. Kind of the idea that somehow Apu can't be different is very false because other characters have changed over the years.
But here's the thing, and I agree. And I think that the Simpsons, I think they've gone on for so long that they've kind of, and they've been in their own kind of writer bubble for so long that they kind of have forgotten that they've already fixed this problem. And what I mean by this is, I think Hari Kanabulu's discussion of this is very nuanced and interesting and meaningful. It's not as though he's talking about Apu as though he's Long Duck Dong from 16 Candles or something.
Right.
He's talking about the problem that he had growing up that is meaningful, and it's not entirely fair to lay at the feet of the Simpsons, but you kind of have to, which is he had no other depictions. So when somebody saw that he was an Indian American and they wanted to reference something in pop culture that everybody does, I wore a hat in high school and college, and I don't want to know how many Freddy Krueger references I had to hear. Because
really? That's weird. That one didn't even pop into my head I met you.
All the time. It was because that was the only character in pop culture that wore that kind of, the wore a fedora. Yeah, I'm the kind of guy that wore a fedora in high school. I was that guy. Point is,
it was a pretty awesome fedora.
It was. It's fantastic. No, it's great. It was the.
I'm a little disappointed you don't still wear it.
I still have it, and sometimes I do still wear it. My point is that the discussion of The Simpsons and the characters in The Simpsons is they all start out, every single one of them start out as these broad comedic caricatures, and then over 30 years, every single character has gotten an interesting, meaningful, personal backstory with usually multiple episodes sketching out who they are. We know. It would be interesting to go through.
They've done whole episodes about the comic book store guy.
Right. But my point is they've done, I bet you by this point, you could put together a season of Apu-centered episodes. They have treated Apu with as much humanity and as much attention and as much, care as they have Krusty the Clown or Mr. Burns or anybody outside of the actual Simpsons family. So they have treated him with, I think, the kind of humanity that Kanabulu and some of the critics are talking about. But do they reference any of that? No. Do they say anything about that in the episode? No. And what's very weird is Lisa...
Yeah.
Is Apu is not in the scene, is not in the story where they're kind of addressing it. And now that we're having this discussion, I haven't read too far into it. Have they written Apu out of the show? Is that the thing? He's not on the show anymore?
No. They're just saying we're not addressing this.
But that's the thing, is they have addressed it. They've made him
meaning they're not going to change anything.
Right. Well,
is what they're saying there. And then I watched the scene and to kind of have Lisa as their voice deliver that they're not going to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a bummer for me.
Well, I hear people saying that, and I do find that to be a strange, and I don't mean to lay this at your feet, but you just said it, so I guess I will. But what I find that
go ahead and lay it at my feet.
I find that to be a strange critique of the way they do it, because it's not as though Lisa isn't. I've heard this on several podcasts and several things as a criticism of the way that The Simpsons has handled it, which is, why did they have to make Lisa do it? No one made Lisa do it. Lisa is just as fake as all the other characters.
I actually think
the same writers put words into all the characters' mouths.
I know that, but I also think
I'm not saying that
very often Lisa is the smart one, obviously, and the one who's more socially conscious.
Right.
So to have her be like, oh well, haters gonna hate is kind of lame. That's all.
Well, I hear you, but I don't.
I understand why people were disappointed by that reaction from them.
I definitely understand why they have that reaction, but let's say they put this in Bart or Homer's mouth. Would that have made it any better? If they had put it in,
it would have made more sense, maybe.
If they had put it in Mr. Well, then, but I think that's the thing is that
it wouldn't change ultimately that they're really not going to do anything about it.
Right. Well, let me ask you this then.
Yeah.
What should
they do?
What should they do? Because you and I are Simpsons fans, and I'm not going to blame Hari Kanabulu with this, because I think he's makes a lot of sense in what he says, and I do need to watch the documentary, so I'm curious if anyone's addressed this, which is they have made him a fully fleshed out character, as fleshed out as any of the other characters on The Simpsons. And I believe he even says in the documentary, the problem isn't Apu, the problem is there's no Indians anywhere else in pop culture, or not many. And what are the Simpsons supposed to do about that?
I think it's not just that he's one of the only Indian characters on television, which isn't true anymore.
That's true.
There are other Indian characters on television. I think it's still like they could get an Indian actor to do the voice, so it's not this like kind of comically exaggerated.
Wouldn't that be a pretty transparent PR move and not a meaningful
I don't even think it would be a PR move. I think it's like they should do it because it's the right thing to do.
Maybe.
I think like if they had an Asian character and they just had some guy like come on and do his long duck dong or something, that would be offensive.
Well, instead what they did was they had George Takei come on and do his long duck dong.
Well, I think right. They could fix this. They could address it. Like I said, they've had other characters that they've kind of changed over the years, and I think they could do the same for Apu. I mean, and not even just the voice. Like, I think from what I understand, the voice is, Hank Azaria's doing like his impression of Peter Sellers from The Party. Right. So it's like,
right.
I think we linked to the article in our show notes where they say it's like a white man doing an impression of a white man doing an impression. It's like, well, why not just get an Indian actor to do the voice now?
But here's the thing. Okay, so let me ask you this,
like,
though.
The look of him too is probably like a stereotype look, right?
I don't know. The
hair with the shirt and the paint,
He's.
I haven't seen the documentary either, so I'm speaking out of turn.
No, I hear what you're saying. I am. My heart and my thoughts are with Kanabulu. I wish I am kind of shocked, and this is almost kind of like at the reaction of The Simpsons, the kind of tone deaf, duller reaction.
I was very surprised by that.
When it's just such a weird thing, because it's having the characters kind of stare at you and give this kind of dopey self-justification, which, I mean, what they should have done and what they could have done is have Apu on the episode and kind of examine this. Like, you've been stuck in the same place for 30 years or whatever. Or they could have had what they should have done. This is what is they should have had Henry Kanabulu on the show as a character interacting with Apu.
That and then would have been great.
They would have been doing something.
Well, it's kind of like, so one of my all-time favorite episodes is when they had John Waters on as the gay man who runs the like crazy like vintage shop in the mall or whatever. And it was such a fun, like smart idea and a way to like put gay characters on the show and kind of address the Smithers stuff and like, but it was so well done and so funny. And I think your idea of bringing that gentleman's on, whose name I know I'm not going to pronounce correctly, is a really great idea. And it seems like a big missed opportunity.
Yeah. I think that's where the fact that they're this tone deaf and this disconnected, one, explains why they've gotten a lot less funny. Two, it's really time to put the show down, and not in a kind of let's erase it from, I'll admit I am a little nervous and I am growing less and less enthusiastic about the kind of modern critical examination of older works, where it's kind of like, well, we need to wall these pieces of art off and kind of pretend like they don't exist.
Well, I don't think that anyone's suggesting that for the Simpsons.
No, they're not.
They?
They're not. No. Well, that's the thing, is when you get controversies like this going on the internet, there's always a chunk of people that are essentially advocating that.
Right.
Usually from the left, and usually I feel like they're my allies and your allies, kind of in spirit, but in execution, they kind of drive me up the wall.
I am a huge Simpsons fan. So let me just, I own a whole bunch of the seasons. I love the old episodes. Like, I quote The Simpsons on like a daily basis, multiple times a day. Right. It is one of my very favorite things. When I watch new episodes, they super bum me out.
Yeah. I agree.
Because they are not as sharp as they used to be. I don't know if it's because they just have like a longer turnaround, or because they've told so many stories that I feel like they're repeating themselves. And even the Halloween ones that used to be like, like every year.
Yeah.
Where they could do anything they want.
Yeah.
I mean, they could do anything they want anyway, but like they're so bad and so boring and so disappointing.
Yeah.
It bums me out to think maybe the Simpsons have creatively like run their course.
Oh, definitely. I think we've been there for several years at this point. I think the last gasp was the movie, and that was 5 years ago.
That was forever ago.
That was a long time ago. So yeah.
Do you want to talk about something more cheerful?
Yes. So that's our discussion of that, and our lament on where The Simpsons has gone. Yes. Something more cheerful.
So I am really excited that Michelle McNamara's book,
I knew you were going to do this.
I'll Be Gone in the Dark, has been optioned by HBO.
So
they are going to make a documentary series about it. And this is a true crime book about the Golden State Killer.
The Golden State serial killer who hasn't been caught.
Who hasn't been caught, like basically terrorized California in the 70s and mid 80s. And this book was written by, like I said, Michelle McNamara, who was Patton Oswalt's late wife,
right? Who
actually, she passed away before she finished it. And then one of their writer friends and one of her researchers helped finish the book.
Yes.
And I was listening to the episode of My Favorite Murder about it, and that was really good too, if you are looking for a podcast to listen to. And I like true crime stuff, but like I actually don't read the books because I don't read. We've established that. I'm a horrible reader, but
I should get an Audible account.
but I super love like true crime, like podcasts and especially documentaries. Oh, It's my favorite. So when I saw that they optioned the book for a documentary series, I'm really excited.
You know, I would be really excited, but HBO is on my shit list.
Oh no.
They have optioned more stuff, put more stuff into production, or start to put it into production and then cancel midway through production, cancel before they're about to get going. More cool projects like this that I have no faith that this will actually make through.
What did they do this to that has made you
Lewis and Clark. The Lewis and Clark miniseries. It was going to kind of be like a follow-up.
Are you talking about the show with Terry Hatcher and Dean Cain?
No, I'm not.
Oh,
but that's
Lois
and Clark. No, Lewis and Clark. I think was with Joaquin Phoenix. It was about the Lewis and Clark expedition. It was kind of like it would have been a great companion piece.
Is that a band?
John Adams. See, this is why it's so tempting to make fun of you, and so tempting to make fun of to make fun of you.
I don't listen to a lot of recent music, so are they a new band?
Yeah, yes, they're a new band. They have a lot of Native American influences, very rustic. A lot of songs about canoeing and map making, which you wouldn't think could sustain.
Their biggest hit is Maize, but you might call it corn.
That's right.
That's a Larry Bubbles Brown joke. I don't want to take credit for that.
So that's one thing. So that's one project. The other project they did. So in 2001, September 9th, 2001, to be extremely precise, they put on the first episode of the greatest limited series in television history, Band of Brothers. Then, 10 years later, they did another fantastic...
That's right.
They did another fantastic series.
I know where you're going now.
The Pacific. Then, 6 years ago, they announced we're doing a third one about bombers in Europe called, based on, I think it was Empire of the Air. I could have that wrong, but it's about the the Mighty Eighth Bomb Wing or whatever.
Yeah, it was just called the Mighty Eighth.
The Mighty Eighth, but it was based on a book like Masters of the Air. That's what it was. Every year, oh no, it's coming. Oh, it's in development. Oh no, maybe. Well, we'll see. It's been years and years and years. Rumors about it they're about to start shooting. They've already started shooting. Nothing. No announcement. Nothing. That goddamn miniseries that sounds so fucking cool is never coming. They tease and they promise to do cool stuff, and then they are half the time they do it, and half the time they just piss out. If you listen to the Ringer series of podcasts, The Watch, they reference this a lot. They will talk about the graveyards of unmade HBO pilots, HBO projects. There's the chance of a show getting a book getting purchased and a show going on the air is, a shot in the dark or a shot in I'll Be Gone in the Dark, to bring it back to Michelle McNamara's thing. But I'm listening to this, and it's actually a pretty good book.
I did a little Googling, and now it says that it has a $500 million budget.
Yeah, supposedly.
This was a year ago, and now they're saying sometime in 2019.
Yeah, exactly. Sometime maybe, who knows? It's not coming. It's not happening. I think a lot of the people that were supposed to be writing it, I think, are directing they're directing episodes of Game of Thrones. It's not happening. It's not coming. Just stop.
Well, maybe once Game of Thrones is done.
Maybe stop with the goddamn promises of the shows that you're going to make, and just shut the hell up until it goes into production.
If they don't make this one, if they don't make this one, I'm gonna be really disappointed.
Well, I have some bad news for you then, Sonia.
Oh!
Because I don't want to hear. They're currently not making this. It's happening right now. What else would you like to talk about?
I wanted to mention a few movies that I watched. I was traveling for work last week. I went to Minnesota and I had to fly, obviously. And last time I got on a plane, I watched some episodes of Twin Peaks: The Return.
Ugh.
One of the episodes made me cry really, really hard on the plane, and I was super embarrassed.
And that was the episode where the kid got smacked by a car. Oh.
Yeah. Mm. And then I started hitting like the call button or whatever, and like ordered like wine, and it was like 10 a.m.
Wow.
It was really, really embarrassing. So on the way home, I was of that flight, I decided to watch some new episodes of Mystery Science Theater 3000, which made me laugh really hard to the point where I was kind of embarrassed because I was laughing really hard. But everyone has their headphones on, so I don't know why I was so embarrassed. So this time I'm on the plane and I decided to watch movies that maybe aren't going to be like super funny, but also aren't going to make me cry. So I watched Pitch Perfect 3 on the way to Minnesota. And on the way home, I watched Bad Moms Christmas. And I got to tell you, both of those movies are pretty terrible.
Really?
Yes.
I had no idea by the fact that we hadn't done these on the show because we thought that they were going to be both quite terrible.
Well, I actually really like the first Pitch Perfect. I think it's a very enjoyable movie. Did you watch that one?
No.
Or no, I made you watch Bring It On.
You made me watch Bring It On, but I think I was also supposed to watch Pitch Perfect, and I'm going to do it. My problem is I hate a cappella.
My problem is I think it looks terrible, and I don't want to see it.
It's a stupid musical form. It's just dumb, and I don't like it.
The first one is a perfectly enjoyable little movie. The second one is like got funny parts, but why? The third one is ridiculous. It involves like one of the characters got like a father who's like a crime boss or something. I mean, literally at one point, one of the characters is like fighting a bunch of people on a boat and setting off an explosion that I assume kills a whole bunch of people. And I was like, this is supposed to be a movie about like an a cappella group.
Yeah. What
the fuck is wrong with this movie? And then Bad Moms Christmas was just like, all the stuff that you thought was so funny in the first one, but we're gonna multiply it by 10, and it was kind of dumb.
I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. How did you watch a movie on a plane? Now that I think about it, that seems like probably the worst possible way to watch a film.
Well, if you think about it, these movies are kind of made for planes.
I guess so.
Because they're not very challenging. They don't require your undivided attention. And by the way, almost everyone around me was watching Bad Moms Christmas, even though it's like April.
Ugh.
Not like April. It is April.
It's very much like April.
It is very much like April. It is. It was like the most popular movie on the plane. We were all watching Bad Moms Christmas. And nobody was laughing.
That's funny.
Do you have what do you watch when you're on a plane?
Well, you know what? This is gonna probably surprise quite a few of you who have not read my book. I actually try to write when I'm on planes. There's no distractions. You can't get on the internet unless you pay for it. You're stuck in a seat staring at nothing. There's nothing to do. I listen to podcasts.
Yeah.
But so that's.
Well, I do that too. I do listen to podcasts sometimes, but I find that these kind of stupid movies are good distractions. Although I did watch some Bob's Burgers, that was good.
Bob's Burgers is fantastic.
That's like an anytime show.
Yes, no, that is great. I have a very close friend who has told me repeatedly that I need to watch that show. And
you've never watched Bob's Burgers?
I've watched it. I've watched like 10 episodes, but I've liked all of them. No, I really like it. So
when I came home, I told my husband that I watched Bob's Burgers on the plane, And he's like, why did we stop watching that one? He's like, we really like it. And I was like, we do really like it. I don't know why we're not watching it every week, but when I do watch it, I'm always glad I watched it.
Hold on just for a second. For those of you listening at home, my son, who shall remain nameless after I relate this story, just needed me to sign a permission slip for him to go see Schindler's List, which I have to say is one of Spielberg's better movies than Ready Player One, which we talked about last week.
Yeah.
What I had to say...
I have a question.
Yes.
Is he going to see it at a theater?
He is going to see it at a theater. I'm actually kind of jealous. I would go see it with him, but I have to work at precisely the time that he is going to do this. He's going to do this Friday morning, and I wish I could be there. Seeing Schindler's List on the big screen again.
Is it at Cinemark Theater?
No, it is not.
Oh.
Because Cinemark Theaters famously supported the Nazis.
No, that is not true.
World War II, it's really quite tragic.
Well,
go look it up.
When I was in college and worked at the theater in your town,
that's right.
We did
which is now a church
of Schindler's List every semester. So twice a year we did a screening of Schindler's List. And then I was a certified projectionist, humble brag. And I used to put that movie together, and then you had to screen it to make sure.
Oh my God.
It was okay. So I've actually seen Schindler's List a lot.
No kidding.
And it made me cry really hard every time. And like sometimes like just they would like drop off the film and I'm like start crying.
Not again.
Put the movie together. I'm like, no, it's not time for this.
You know what you should have done? Wow, this might be an interesting way to get fired. You should have put the reels together in reverse order. So it went from...
No!
Or I wonder if you could put the reels together in such a way that it became happier as the film. I guess you would have to start out with the Auschwitz stuff, and then you would go to the rounding up of the Jews stuff, and then you would go to it's over and they're all in Israel. I guess. You know what? It's impossible. Surprisingly enough, it's impossible to cut Schindler's List into a version that's happy.
Yeah. Maybe they should add some a cappella numbers.
That's my hot take here. Oh, yeah, we were talking about awful. Speaking of awful airplane.
Yeah, Schindler's List would not be a good airplane movie.
Okay, so here's a question then.
Yes.
What would be worse? I think I know the answer to this, but I think it might be kind of close. Watching some form of porn, even tame porn, or watching Schindler's List. What would be more awkward on a plane?
Porn, right?
Probably.
I would assume so. I would be very uncomfortable if somebody was watching porn near me on a plane.
Yeah, that would
bother me.
That would be... You know, I do have to say this, though.
Like, I don't think I'm a prude, but it would...
No, I
would be uncomfortable for sure.
I am definitely not a prude.
Also, there's kids on planes. They shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah, they shouldn't be doing that. But I would almost... If I had a different kind of life, if I had all the time in the world to spend on stuff, I would almost like to see somebody watching porn on a plane and then just follow them. Say, where is this person going in this world? I gotta see where this. I gotta see where this is going.
I love that idea.
That choice in that moment is fascinating.
Are you following me? Well, yeah. Exactly. I just want to see how the story ends.
I just gotta see what's up with you, man. Miss, I'm sorry, but I just have to see where this goes. So I shouldn't assume. You know what? Here's the thing. There are certain distinctions in life where we try to be gender fair about it. It's like, because I just had that reaction. I assumed that such a person watching porn on a plane would be a man. Mm-hmm. And then I felt the impulse to go, well, you never know. It might not be a man. But you know what? It's a man. It's a man.
It's probably a man.
It's obviously a man. Like 97% of 93% of mass shooters are men. I think we can safely assume, I feel in certain instances, we can talk about, I don't know where I am going with this.
I don't know. What else is on your list? Let's change the subject.
Yeah, speaking of which, let's talk about sexual assault, sexual harassment, and The Breakfast Club. We just got finished talking about 16 Candles when Molly Ringwald, as though reading our mind, wrote a think piece.
Obviously, she listens to the show. She is one of the 35 people that listens to the show. Come on now.
It's not 35 people.
It's 32.
Dare to dream. Anyway, it's 27. So she wrote about John Hughes, the legacy of John Hughes, The Breakfast Club, and, the way that men and women dealt with each other, high school boys and girls dealt with each other in those much beloved John Hughes movies. And she addressed kind of a lot of the stuff that we talked about. Mainly she focused on The Breakfast Club and, her discomfort in watching The Breakfast Club with her daughter and kind of what it said about gender dynamics in this. And I have not recently watched The Breakfast Club again, so I would point people to the Slate Cultural Gabfest because they had a fantastic discussion about Molly Ringwald's piece on there, and they actually did rewatch The Breakfast Club and kind of have a point-by-point, very interesting examination of it.
I actually will go listen to that. I think that sounds really interesting.
But
countless people sent this to me. This article to me.
Yeah, they sent it to me too, and I think it's because I almost had the feeling, and actually Molly Ringwald echoed a lot of what we had to say on the 16 Candles episode about, how do you deal with art that is aged not so great? We can't really throw it away. And I do think that there is this modern, since the Bill Cosby thing happened, there is this kind of modern whiting out of certain aspects of culture. Who's talked about the Louis C.K. show?
Right.
Who's talked about Louis? Who talks about, I guess, people still sometimes talk about Woody Allen. Who talks about, the Cosby Show? Who talks, there are these huge swaths of culture that get deemed irretrievable that I think, it might make us feel good right now in the moment and make us feel more enlightened right now in the moment. But it's just I don't know if this is the best way to deal with problematic culture. I think for me, the more and more we talk this through on more and more episodes, I feel like Molly Ringwald maybe is being a little too tough on herself. It's mainly her talking about John Hughes and the writing of John Hughes, but I think she's a little bit too self-lacerating in that those were very impactful, very important movies. But they have the markers of their time on them, and there's nothing we can do about it.
I thought she actually made a really good point where she talked about how John Hughes clearly had this blind spot.
Right.
And how she's like, how can the man who wrote the parts about in these movies that really are about teenagers and teenage problems and the emotions and the relationships and all those things that really resonate with people, and then but also write something like Long Duck Dong or the stuff with Carolyn and 16 Candles where they kind of
exactly
like date rape and things like that, and the stuff in Breakfast Club too. And she was just a kid. She was a teenager. So she doesn't need to be hard on herself like, oh, I should have said something then. Well, you wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know.
Right.
Either. Like, I watched those movies many times, and at no point was I like, well, that's not right. Or.
Right. Yeah. No.
But I did appreciate what she was saying. Like, these movies are problematic. There are things in them that are not good. But she also pointed out the things that were good.
Right.
So.
And I think that's where I'm coming down, and I'm hoping that we're coming to a point where we can have this culture that we love, but also have a big arena for criticisms to be pointed at it without doing this. I think that's part of what it is there's this certain strain of criticism that is this kind of self-important, sanctimonious criticism that, oh, you should get rid of it or, erase it or reject it or whatever, which I think is kind of foolish in its, in its own way. It's good-hearted, but a fool's errand, because even the purist culture now, quote unquote, purist culture now, 30 years from now is going to look very dated no matter what you say, no matter what we think. There's not a single piece of culture in the world that doesn't show signs of aging. And that's the other thing that I think that came out in her piece is there's a question of, I think what a lot of modern internet critics, when they do these kind of retro examinations of culture that they find lacking, there's this kind of idea that culture is there to show us kind of almost like a rule book. This is the correct way to be, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. But art, I think, this is the eternal debate about art is, do we reflect what we should be? Or do we present what we should be? Or do we reflect the reality of what we are? Right. And I think the reality of what we are is much more helpful. We can be aspirational. We can be revealing. We can reach for something. Yeah. But at the same time, we have to acknowledge the heartache, the hardness, the difficulty, the ignorance, the faults. The question is there kind of like, well, how could could the man that writes with such nuance about this be so blind here? Because people are imperfect. Yeah. Because people people have weird quirks. There's all kinds of problems. There was a time when Woody Allen was the cutting edge of feminist comedy. Forward-thinking. No, I'm serious. Right. He was forward-thinking. He was with it. He was with the modern times. He was modern sensibilities. He was the leading edge. He was the Ezra Klein of his day. And now look at him.
Well, I would like to explore further, not in this episode, but maybe in a different episode, kind of how do we decide what movie we're going to be shitting all over now? Right. We talked about this in 16 Candles. There's some fucked up shit in that movie, and I totally get it. And there's also some good stuff in there. But how come people aren't shitting all over Animal House? Well, Animal House has a lot of fucked up shit in that movie.
I think they have a little bit, but no. But I don't know. I'll take somewhat, but I completely
also,
take your
Breakfast
point.
At Tiffany's. This is the one I always come back to. Mickey Rooney is offensive as fuck in that movie. Yeah. Like playing like a Japanese stereotype, and he's Mickey Rooney. Right. Also, Mickey Rooney is weird looking, and I don't get that he was ever a star. But anyway.
Oh, come on now. Don't put that on Mickey Rooney.
He's a weirdo.
All right.
But anyway.
I like Mickey Rooney, but you are 100% correct in every aspect of your criticism of that movie.
Worship that movie. Oh, They worship it. I don't think it's a very good movie, by the way. I don't like Breakfast at Tiffany's. Yeah. But people worship it. And I was like, well, how come that movie is okay, but Long Duck Dong is not okay?
Well, I think that's the thing.
By the way, I think they're both wrong.
Yeah. No, I don't think you're, I hate to tell you this, Sonia, but I don't think you're alone in that. I think a lot of the Breakfast at Tiffany's is one of the more famous examples of yellow face acting.
But people still love it. Like, it's not on, like, you're talking about, like, that we, like, wall off certain movies.
Right.
Breakfast at Tiffany's is not walled off.
Well, that is, you know what?
Is it because, they're like, well, Audrey Hepburn's so beautiful, and she's this, and she's that, and it has this and that, and it's like, well,
right.
Yeah. 16 Candles has this and that, and Molly Ringwald, and it was awesome. But it's got that. Well, it's also got date rape. But know what I mean.
Yeah, that's the thing. That is definitely the thing. And I think that's where I'm coming down is we need to be able to criticize movies and show their faults and show how they need to evolve and show how they can better reflect the world. But at the same time, get off half of the soapbox and let's stop pretending that if we just wag our finger at these movies in a metaphorical kind of way and turn our backs on them, that somehow we've achieved something. I think that critiquing them, maybe that's coming back down to it, is the Hari Kanabulu's discussion is the kind of discussion that we should have. He's not saying cancel The Simpsons, but he's also pointing out big, serious problems, right. And that's what we need to do. We need to say we can take parts, we can take what's good from imperfect cinema. I mean, here's the thing, I'll go way out on a limb here, and I think I might have made this point before, and if I did, I'm sorry. We can't even, in a sense, throw away Birth of a Nation. Birth of a Nation is one of the most offensive, awful, almost supernaturally offensive films to our modern sensibilities. However, the storytelling techniques, the editing techniques, the film techniques in that movie have shaped a century. There is not any aspect of filmmaking in the last 100 years, all of film, that does not have that as a foundational,
Well, what film. Are all the movies by Lenny Rosenthal?
Exactly.
Those are still shown in film classes.
Yeah, exactly. I guess that is a question. Is there does come a point where I think, and maybe that's where we come down on this. There does come a point where a film becomes so old, so dated, so problematic that it kind of passes out of entertainment and goes into essentially academia, which is where Birth of a Nation is now, where we examine it and we think about it, and where Lily Riefenstahl's films are now, where we pay attention to them because of what they did. But we don't include, they're not going to be in a Saturday afternoon movie marathon on TBS, I guess, is what we're saying.
I was thinking about the Apu thing, because we've been talking about it. And, Looney Tunes had a lot of problems with, obviously racist caricatures and things like that. And some people were tweeting about it, and they were showing like screen grabs from some of the Looney Tunes where they actually have like a placard that says we had times were different, we don't condone these kind of stereotypes, blah, 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 blah. And, maybe The Simpsons could even think about something like that, not to get back on Apu. And
that's not a bad way to examine it. I mean, I think that's part of me now that we're talking about this, part of me now is wondering if they're not having Apu on the show anymore, because it seems like such a weird move.
Feel like they would have said that.
But part of me now, because I don't pay attention to a whole lot of these things sometimes when I'm kind of blasting through this, is I should say I don't do a whole lot of reading on The Simpsons also, is the fact that they're examining this question and not having Apu in the episode at all just seems extremely strange.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that you would like to talk about?
I see the link in here to your Culture Gabfest, and it also mentions Roseanne. Did you watch Roseanne?
I did not, because
I also did not.
I did not watch the original show that much. I have a very hard time with 3-camera comedies these days. It's just it's almost like watching opera. Where it's like this art form had its time. It was fantastic, but I just can't do it. It's got to be extremely well written, like Cheers, Seinfeld level writing, in order for me to be able to sit through an episode.
Oh, yeah. So speaking of sitcoms, while I was on my trip, I finally finished The Good Place, and it was awesome.
I need to get going on season 2. I've let it build
It's so
up.
Good.
I've heard so much good stuff about it.
So smart.
Right.
Really good. I love it.
Cool. All right.
I had lots of other things, but I'll just save them for another time.
So, we will be back next week with a discussion of A Quiet Place. And
I am very excited. I am seeing that on Saturday with my niece. Yay!
That's very cool. And maybe something else. I said and I'm hoping that we'll have something else maybe, but I have to admit, I have no idea what it is, and we might not have anything else, and that might be it.
Is it The Mighty Eight?
I can guarantee that it is not, because it's not happening.
Is there a topic 2 you haven't shared with me? Because I don't know what you're talking about.
There is no topic 2 right now. I'm hoping there will be by next week, but right now there's not. Sonia Mansfield, is there anything else you would like to say before we get out of here?
I'll just say goodbye.
Bye-bye!